The stars looked different from this far out in space. Lieutenant Commander Jake Miller stared at the view screen of the U.S. Defiant. This was humanity's first venture so deep into uncharted territory. The crew felt both excited and nervous. "Sir, we're picking up unusual energy readings," said Communications Officer Patty Nelson. Her fingers moved quickly across her console. "Two different signal patterns. Neither matches anything in our database." Miller nodded. "Proceed with caution. Reduce speed and raise shields as a precaution." The Defiant slowed as it approached what appeared to be a space battle. Two alien fleets exchanged fire in the distance. One fleet had sleek, blue-white ships that moved with grace. The other had dark, angular vessels covered in sharp protrusions. "We need to back away slowly," Miller ordered. "We are not getting involved in someone else's fight." But it was too late. The Defiant had been spotted. Three of the dark ships broke formation and moved toward the human vessel with alarming speed. "Hail them," Miller said. "All frequencies, universal greeting protocol." Patty tried, but received no response. Instead, the dark ships fired warning shots that flashed past the Defiant's bow. "Return to Earth coordinates, maximum speed," Miller ordered. Before they could turn around, a bright energy beam hit the Defiant's engines. The ship shuddered and alarms blared throughout the bridge. "Engine power at 40%, reported engineer Frank West. "We can't outrun them." The situation looked grim until several of the blue-white ships positioned themselves between the Defiant and the attackers. A voice came through the communication system. It spoke in a strange language, but the ship's computer quickly began translating. "Unknown vessel. This is Galactic Coalition Defense Force. You have entered a war zone. Follow our escort to safety." Miller had no choice but to comply. The Defiant followed the blue ships away from the battle. Hours later, they docked at an enormous space station unlike anything humans had ever built. It stretched for miles in every direction, housing countless alien vessels. A delegation of tall, blue-skinned aliens with 4 arms met the human crew at the airlock. Their leader stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Xerex of the Galactic Coalition. You have stumbled upon our conflict with the Kravax Empire. A most unfortunate timing for first contact." Miller introduced himself and explained their peaceful exploration mission. The ambassador led them to a large meeting room where representatives of various alien species waited. None of them looked particularly happy to see the humans. "The coalition has existed for over 6,000 years, Xerex explained. "We have united 43 spacefaring civilizations in peace and mutual protection. The Kravax Empire, however, believes in conquest and enslavement of what they call lesser species." A tall insect-like alien displayed a holographic map showing hundreds of star systems. Many glowed red. "These are the territories lost to the Kravax in recent years," said the alien in a clicking voice. "They are technologically superior in many ways. We are losing this war." Miller noticed how the aliens studied the humans with a mixture of curiosity and dismissal. One military officer spoke quietly to another, but the translation system caught his words. "Such primitive creatures, soft and weak." Ambassador Xerex tried to be diplomatic. "Your species is young. Your technology is developing. But perhaps you can still be of use." Miller understood their meaning. The coalition saw humans as potential cannon fodder for their war. It was clear from their dismissive looks and condescending tones. "We need to contact Earth," Miller said firmly. "Our people need to know what's happening out here." Xerex nodded. "We will assist you in sending a message. But understand this, the Kravax now know of your existence. They will find your homeworld eventually. Your species has unknowingly joined this war, whether you wish it or not." Miller looked at his crew members. Their faces showed worry but also determination. Humanity was about to face its greatest challenge, a galactic war they never asked to join, against an enemy who saw them as nothing but slaves to be conquered. 3 weeks after the Defiant's discovery, Captain Lisa Carter arrived at the Coalition space station with 5 Earth ships. The small diplomatic fleet represented humanity's first official contact with the coalition. Earth had received Miller's messages and sent their best military and diplomatic minds to assess the situation. Captain Carter stepped off her ship with her team. She wore her formal uniform and walked with confidence. The aliens towered over the humans, but Carter did not look intimidated. "On behalf of Earth, I thank you for helping our exploratory vessel," she said to Ambassador Zyrex. "We come to understand this conflict and discuss possible cooperation." The Coalition War Council met in a large round chamber. Representatives from many alien species sat in rising tiers around a central holographic display. The humans were given seats at the lowest level, a clear sign of their perceived status. General Throlak, the Coalition military commander, began the briefing. He was tall with gray skin and had eyes that glowed yellow. His voice boomed through the chamber. "The Kravaks have superior weapons, faster ships, and stronger shields," he explained. "They have pushed us back in 12 major battles this year alone." The hologram showed coalition ships being destroyed by Kravaks weapons. The general looked at the humans with obvious doubt. "Your species' technology is primitive compared to ours, and we are already losing. I fail to see how you could help us." Eric Summers, Earth's chief military strategist, studied the battle simulations carefully. He was older than most of the human team, with gray hair and a thoughtful expression. He had spent years studying military history on Earth. "May I ask a question?" Summers said. When the general nodded, he continued. "I notice your ships always form the same formations and follow precise attack patterns. Is this standard procedure?" "Of course," replied Throlak. "We use battle formations perfected over thousands of years. Each movement is calculated for maximum efficiency." Summers nodded. "And how often do you change these patterns?" The alien council members looked confused. "Change them? Why would we change what is mathematically optimal?" Summers stood up and walked to the holographic display. "With your permission." When granted access, he manipulated the controls to replay the last battle. "Your tactics are predictable," he said simply. "The Kravaks know exactly what you will do before you do it. On Earth, we learned long ago that sometimes the mathematically perfect solution is not the best when your enemy expects it." The council chamber filled with murmurs. Some aliens seemed offended, others curious. Summers continued. "Humans have fought wars against technologically superior enemies many times in our history. We learned to adapt, to be unpredictable, to use terrain and psychology against our enemies." He changed the simulation to show a different battle approach, with ships breaking formation, using asteroids as cover, and attacking from unexpected angles. This is how humans would fight. Not with superior technology, but with superior adaptability. General Throlak made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Chaotic, undisciplined. You would waste resources with such random movements." Captain Carter stepped forward. "Not random. Adaptive. Humans excel at changing plans when facing unexpected situations. Your own reports show the Kravaks win because they can predict your next move." The Coalition War Council debated among themselves in various languages. Some dismissed the human ideas immediately. Others seemed intrigued. Finally, Ambassador Zyrex spoke. "We are losing this war with our current methods. Perhaps there is wisdom in trying something new, even if it comes from a young species." General Throlak did not look convinced, but he nodded reluctantly. "Very well. We will permit a small human contingent to join our next defensive operation at Proxima VI. It is a minor mining colony under threat of attack. If your methods prove effective, we will consider further cooperation." Captain Carter looked at her team. This was their chance to prove humanity's worth to the coalition, not through advanced technology, but through the uniquely human ability to adapt and overcome. The stakes couldn't be higher. If they failed, Earth might be left to face the Kravaks alone. The mining colony on Proxima VI was built into the side of a mountain range. Its valuable mineral deposits made it an important target for the Kravaks. Major Samright led a team of 20 human special operations soldiers to help defend it. They arrived 3 days before the expected attack. Coalition Commander Vexnar greeted the humans with obvious skepticism. He was a reptilian alien with scaled skin and stood nearly 7 feet tall. "You will defend the eastern approach," he told Wright. "My troops will handle the main defenses according to standard protocols." Wright surveyed the terrain with a frown. "The eastern approach has almost no natural barriers. It's the most vulnerable area." "Precisely," said Vexnar. "We are testing your abilities. You claimed humans could fight effectively against superior forces. Now prove it." The humans were given basic quarters and access to coalition weapons, which were more advanced than Earth technology. Wright gathered his team for planning. "They've set us up to fail," said Sergeant Amy Powell, checking her new plasma rifle. 20 of us against who knows how many Krivaks." Wright nodded. "So we changed the rules. We don't fight the way they expect anyone to fight." Over the next 2 days, the humans worked continuously. They dug trenches where coalition soldiers would have built shield walls. They created simple traps using mining explosives. They positioned themselves in scattered hiding spots, rather than in the formal defensive line that Vexnar had suggested. Coalition observers watched with confusion and sometimes amusement. They didn't understand why the humans were working so hard on what seemed like primitive fortifications when they had access to energy shields and automated defense turrets. On the 3rd day, the Kravaks arrived. Their ships darkened the sky before landing troops outside the colony perimeter. The Kravak soldiers were tall, with 4 arms and armor that seemed to absorb light. They carried weapons that fired pulses of dark energy. The battle began exactly as the coalition had predicted. The Kravaks disabled the main shield generators with a precise strike, then moved forward in tight formations. The coalition troops responded with their standard defense protocols, firing in coordinated patterns from behind backup shield generators. But on the eastern approach, things went differently. When the Kravaks forces advanced, they found no organized resistance. Instead, hidden mines exploded under their feet. Snipers fired from unexpected positions. The humans never stayed in one place long enough to become easy targets. A Kravaks commander led a charge toward what seemed like a weak point in the defenses. Wright had anticipated this and set a trap. When the Kravaks entered a narrow ravine, explosives collapsed the walls on them. "Move to position B," Wright shouted into his comm unit. His team immediately shifted positions, maintaining constant movement. On the main battlefield, the coalition forces were struggling. Their rigid formations were breaking under the Kravaks' assault. 3 of their defensive positions had already fallen. Eastern sector should have been overrun by now, a coalition officer reported to Commander Vexnar. But the humans are still holding. The Kravaks are committing more forces to that area. Vexnar watched the battle displays with growing surprise. The humans were pulling Kravaks' forces away from the main colony, thinning the enemy's numbers. Their chaotic, unpredictable movements were confusing the Kravaks commanders who were used to fighting the methodical coalition forces. By nightfall, the colony still stood. The Kravaks had retreated to regroup, having lost more soldiers than expected. The eastern approach, which should have fallen first, had held firm under human defense. Commander Vexnar found Wright treating a wound on his arm. "Your methods are unorthodox," the alien said, "but effective. You were outnumbered 5-1, yet you held your position while suffering minimal casualties." Wright shrugged. "Humans have been fighting outnumbered for most of our history. We've had to learn how to adapt." "Perhaps," said Vexnar slowly, "there is more for us to learn from humans than we first thought." Word of the successful defense spread quickly through coalition communication channels. Military analysts began carefully studying recordings of the human tactics. For the first time since the war began, the coalition had found something the Kravaks couldn't easily counter. Something unpredictable. Something human. After the success at Proxima VI, the coalition became very interested in humans. They brought 50 human soldiers to their main science facility on Rigel Prime. The aliens wanted to understand what made humans different from other species. Dr. Olivia Grant, a human xenobiologist, worked with coalition scientists. They ran tests on human volunteers, measuring how their bodies responded to stress, pain, and fear. The aliens were confused by what they found. Your heart rate increases under stress, yet your decision-making often improves, said Dr. Zex, a six-limbed alien scientist. Most species lose cognitive function when adrenaline rises, but humans seem built for crisis situations. Dr. Grant smiled. Humans evolved as both prey and predator. We were not the strongest or fastest on our planet, but we survived because we could adapt quickly. Our stress response prepares us to fight or run, but also sharpens our minds. The coalition began integrating small groups of human soldiers into their military units. They called them tactical advisors, though many coalition officers still viewed humans as primitive. The cultural differences created tension between the species. Sergeant Kyle Martinez was assigned to a coalition unit led by Commander Vrex. The commander was a tall, blue-skinned alien who strictly followed military protocols. "Your human emotions make you unpredictable," Vrex told Martinez during their first meeting. "We value logic and clear battle plans. Emotions lead to mistakes." Martinez shook his head. "Sometimes emotions save lives. A soldier who feels connected to his team will risk more to protect them. That bond makes us stronger, not weaker." Vrex did not understand this concept. In coalition culture, soldiers followed orders without question. The idea of personal sacrifice for others outside one's genetic family seemed illogical to them. During a training exercise, one of Vrex's soldiers became trapped under fallen debris. According to coalition protocol, retrieving him would risk too many resources. Vrex prepared to mark him as a casualty. Martinez ignored the protocol. He crawled under the unstable debris and dragged the injured alien to safety. The coalition soldiers watched in shock. No one had expected Martinez to risk his life for an alien he barely knew. "Why did you do that?" Vrex asked later. "The probability of success did not justify the risk to your life." Martinez looked Vrex in the eyes. "On Earth, we have a saying, no one gets left behind. It's not about probability. It's about brotherhood." "Brotherhood? But you are not the same species," Vrex said, confused. "Brotherhood isn't about biology," Martinez explained. "It's about standing together against a common enemy, knowing someone has your back no matter what. That trust makes a stronger fighting force than any technology." Over the following weeks, Martinez taught Vrex's unit human tactics. The aliens learned to use terrain to their advantage, to adapt when plans failed, and to make quick decisions without waiting for orders from above. Slowly, something changed in the coalition unit. They began to work together differently, more like humans did. During a surprise Kravax attack on a supply depot, Vrex was injured. Martinez pulled him to safety while the rest of the unit provided covering fire, something they would never have done before training with humans. As Vrex recovered in the medical bay, he called Martinez to his side. "I believe I understand your concept of brotherhood now," the alien said quietly. "When you pulled me to safety, I felt grateful, not just for my survival, but because you valued me as an individual." Back on Earth, the military leadership received reports of the growing cooperation between humans and coalition forces. They agreed to commit significant military resources to the war, but with one condition. Humans would be treated as full partners, not expendable assets. Ambassador Zyrex, speaking for the Coalition Council, formally accepted the terms. For the first time in its long history, the Galactic Coalition recognized a new species as equals before they had proven themselves for centuries. The human element was changing more than just battle tactics. It was changing the coalition itself. 3 months after humans joined the war, the Kravax launched their biggest attack yet. They sent hundreds of warships toward the coalition's core worlds. The coalition leaders called an emergency meeting with their human allies. "They target our most populated systems," said General Throlak, pointing to a star map. "If these worlds fall, Billions will die, and our industrial capacity will drop by 60%. Admiral Diana Ross had just arrived from Earth with humanity's first battle fleet. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She studied the map carefully. "The Kravaks expect you to defend these worlds the same way you always have," she said, "but we won't give them what they expect." Ross proposed a new strategy that combined coalition technology with human tactics. Coalition ships would be reorganized into smaller, more flexible groups. Human commanders would lead mixed crews, teaching them to think and react like humans during battle. Some coalition officers objected. They had followed the same battle procedures for generations, but the success of human soldiers in recent battles had earned respect. General Thrulak approved Ross's plan, though he still had doubts. "Prepare your ships," he told Ross. "We meet the Kravaks at Epsilon Eridani in 2 days." The human coalition fleet arrived at Epsilon Eridani first. Instead of forming the traditional defensive line, they scattered their ships throughout the system. Some hid behind moons, others powered down to avoid detection. When the Kravaks fleet arrived, they found only a small group of coalition ships in the expected formation. The Kravaks commander sent his ships forward, thinking this would be an easy victory. That's when Admiral Ross gave the signal. Coalition and human ships powered up and attacked from all directions. The Kravaks found themselves surrounded. In the fighter squadrons, human pilots introduced new tactics. Instead of flying in strict formations, they broke into small wings that attacked, retreated, and attacked again from different angles. The Kravaks could not predict where the next strike would come from. Captain Joe Ramirez led a squadron of mixed human and coalition pilots. His voice came through the comm system, steady and confident. "Blue wing, dive and strike their left flank. Green wing, provide cover fire. Red wing, follow me toward their command ship." The coalition pilots had never flown this way before, but they followed Ramirez's lead. Their smaller, faster ships darted between the larger Kravaks vessels, causing confusion and disrupting the enemy's careful formations. On the bridge of the coalition flagship, General Thrulak watched in amazement. The battle was not going as any of their simulations had predicted. The Kravaks were responding slowly, unsure how to counter these unpredictable movements. "They're retreating from Sector 4, reported a coalition officer. "Our fighters broke through their defenses." For 6 hours, the battle raged across the Epsilon Eridani system. Both sides took heavy losses, but for the first time in the war, the Kravaks did not simply overwhelm the coalition forces. Their superior technology was balanced by the unpredictable human tactics. Finally, the Kravaks commander ordered a retreat. His fleet pulled back, leaving the system still in coalition hands. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was the first time the coalition had stopped a major Kravaks offensive. Admiral Ross stood on the bridge of her ship, looking at the damage reports. Many good people had died today, both human and alien, but they had held the line. General Thrulak approached her. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by a new respect. "In all our wars," he said quietly, "we have never fought like this. Your people change everything you touch, Admiral Ross. Today we did not lose ground. Today we stood firm." Ross nodded. "This is just the beginning, General. Now we teach your people not just to defend, but to strike back." Word of the battle spread quickly throughout coalition space. For the first time in years, people began to hope. The war was not over, but it had reached a turning point. Humans had changed the equation, and the Kravaks no longer seemed invincible. After the success at Epsilon Eridani, the Coalition War Council met to plan their next move. For the first time, they were not just thinking about defense. They were considering how to fight back. Colonel Ben Hawkins stood before the alien leaders. He was younger than most senior officers, with a scar across his left cheek from an early battle with the Kravaks. His plan was unlike anything the Coalition had considered before. "We should not attack their main fleet," Hawkins said, pointing to the star map. "That's what they expect, and it plays to their strengths. Instead, we target their supply lines. General Throlak frowned. Supply lines? Not their warships. Every army marches on its stomach, Hawkins explained. An old saying from Earth. It means even the strongest military needs supplies to function. Cut off those supplies, and their advantage weakens. The coalition leaders looked skeptical. In their culture, direct confrontation was the honorable way to fight. Attacking supply ships seemed underhanded. "This is not how wars are fought," said Admiral Kex, a senior coalition commander. "It's exactly how wars are won," Hawkins countered. On Earth, many conflicts were decided not by who had the better weapons, but by who could keep their forces supplied longer. He showed historical examples from Earth's military history, how smaller forces defeated larger ones by cutting supply routes, how armies that couldn't feed their soldiers soon lost their will to fight. Slowly, the coalition leaders began to understand. Their traditional approach wasn't working against the Krivaks. Perhaps it was time to try something new. "Very well," General Throlak said finally. "How do we find these supply routes?" Hawkins smiled. "We need intelligence, and for that, we need a special operations team to go behind enemy lines." A mixed team of humans and coalition special forces prepared for the mission. They would use a captured Krivak shuttle to infiltrate enemy territory. Their goal was to place tracking devices on supply ships and gather information about the Krivak's logistics network. Communications specialist Maria Rodriguez was chosen for the team because of her skill with alien technology. She had a talent for understanding and manipulating complex systems. The Krivaks use quantum-encrypted communications, she explained during mission briefing. But every encryption has patterns. If I can access their network, I might find weaknesses we can exploit. The infiltration team launched in the captured shuttle. They crossed into Krivak's territory, under the pretense of being a routine supply ship. For 3 days, they moved carefully from station to station, planting hidden trackers and collecting data. At a major supply depot, Rodriguez managed to access a Krivak's communications terminal. While the rest of the team kept watch, she worked quickly to download data and analyze their encryption systems. "Their security is advanced," she said, fingers flying across the alien interface. "But they're overconfident. They don't expect anyone to get this far into their territory." After hours of work, Rodriguez cracked a portion of the Krivak's encryption code. What she found was invaluable: complete maps of their supply network, schedules for shipments, and locations of their main depots. "We have what we need," said the team leader. "Time to go home." Their return journey was tense. Twice they nearly encountered Krivak's patrols, but they made it back to coalition space with their precious intelligence intact. Using Rodriguez's data, Admiral Ross and Colonel Hawkins planned a coordinated attack. They would strike multiple Krivak supply depots simultaneously, using small, fast attack groups. The coalition leaders were nervous about spreading their forces so thin, but they trusted the human strategy now. The combined fleet launched its attack. Dozens of small battle groups jumped into Krivak space at different points, targeting supply ships and depots rather than military vessels. The Krivaks were caught completely off guard. They had never considered their supply lines vulnerable. Their mighty warships scrambled to defend the depots, but they were too slow and too far away. By the time they responded, the coalition forces had already destroyed key facilities and disappeared. For the first time, the coalition had launched a successful offensive against the Krivaks. Even more importantly, the Krivaks suddenly found themselves short of critical supplies. Their advance stalled as they struggled to fuel their ships and feed their troops. "Now they know what it feels like to be hungry," Hawkins told the War Council. "And hungry soldiers don't fight as well as fed ones." The psychological impact was even greater than the physical damage. The Krivaks had believed their territory was secure. Now they realized nowhere was safe from these unpredictable humans and their new coalition tactics. The Krivaks' Emperor Drakuth was furious. His mighty empire was being challenged by a coalition that included primitive humans. The supply line attacks had caused serious problems for his forces. Food and fuel shortages affected many Kravax ships. For the first time, the Kravax were on the defensive. Drakov called his war council together. The Emperor was tall even for a Kravax, with dark purple skin and 4 powerful arms. His eyes glowed with anger as he addressed his commanders. "These humans have changed everything," he said. "They teach our enemies to fight in ways we cannot predict. This cannot continue." The Emperor made a terrible decision. He ordered the execution of all human prisoners of war. The deaths would be recorded and broadcast across coalition space. He believed this would break the will of the humans and their allies. "Show them the price of defiance," Drakov told his commanders. "Let them see how easily these soft creatures die." 3 days later, the horrific videos reached coalition space. The footage showed human prisoners being killed in brutal ways. The coalition leaders worried that the humans would be demoralized and might withdraw from the war. But the effect was the opposite of what the Kravax expected. Instead of breaking morale, the executions united humans and coalition species in a way nothing else could. The shared outrage created a bond between the different species. Admiral Ross called an emergency meeting with General Thrulak. "We need to respond," she said, her voice steady despite her anger. "Not just for revenge, but to show the Kravax they cannot break us this way." "What do you propose?" asked Thrulak. "A rescue mission," Ross replied. "We have intelligence that hundreds of prisoners are still alive at a detention center in the Proxima Centauri system. We go in and get them out." Lieutenant Ryan Jackson volunteered to lead the rescue mission. He had lost friends in the executions and was determined to save those who remained. His team included both humans and coalition special forces who had trained together for months. They used a captured Kravax ship to approach the prison facility. The plan was high risk but simple: get in, free the prisoners, and escape before reinforcements arrived. The team landed in a maintenance bay. They moved quickly through the facility, using both stealth and force when needed. Jackson led from the front, guiding his team through the maze-like corridors. "Stay focused," he told them. "We come back with everyone, or we don't come back at all." They reached the cell blocks and began freeing prisoners. Humans, coalition soldiers, and even civilian workers were kept in terrible conditions. Many were sick or injured, but all who could walk joined the escape. As they moved toward their ship, alarms sounded. Kravax guards rushed to stop them. A firefight broke out in the main corridor. Jackson's team created a defensive position to cover the prisoners' escape. One by one, they got the freed captives aboard the ship. But the Kravax were closing in from all sides. "We need a diversion," Jackson said. He looked at his team. "I'll hold them off while you get everyone aboard." But his coalition teammate, an alien named Krell, shook his head. "No, we learned from humans that no one gets left behind. We go together or not at all." The team worked together to set explosive charges in adjacent corridors. When the Kravax forces pushed forward, they triggered the explosions, collapsing parts of the facility and blocking the enemy's approach. In the confusion, Jackson's team made it to the ship. As they lifted off, Kravax fighters scrambled to pursue them. But coalition ships jumped into the system right on schedule, providing cover fire for their escape. They returned to coalition space with over 300 rescued prisoners. The mission was hailed as a major success, not just for the lives saved, but for what it represented. Humans and coalition species had risked everything for each other. The bond between them grew stronger. Meanwhile, on the main war front, Captain Alicia Foster had developed something new. She was a weapons specialist who understood both human and coalition technology. Working with alien engineers, she created a weapon that could penetrate Kravax shields. "It's a tactical nuclear option," she explained to the coalition leaders. "Small, precise, and effective against their command ships." Some coalition species were hesitant about such destructive weapons. In their culture, weapons of mass destruction were considered dishonorable. But Foster showed them how these weapons could be used with precision to target military installations while minimizing civilian casualties. The coalition agreed to use Foster's weapons in their next major offensive. Their target, the Kravax command and control systems. If successful, it would leave the enemy fleet in disarray, unable to coordinate their actions across space.
They looked human, but no human fleet had ever moved like this. No signals, no response, just 200 ships hanging in space, pulsing with impossible energy. Then the message came. We are the vanguard of the human evolutionary collective. Prepare for inspection. Everyone froze, because whatever these beings were, they knew everything. Every classified ship, every hidden base, every heartbeat. And they had one question for the galaxy. Are you ready to evolve or disappear? Before we dive into this mind-bending encounter between humanity and something far beyond human, make sure to subscribe for more epic sci-fi stories that explore the edge of existence. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a moment, and drop a comment below. What would you do if a fleet of godlike beings claiming to be human showed up uninvited? Now, let's step into the unknown. Warning sirens blared through the cold metal corridors of Outpost Seraph 9. Commander Tralvek jolted upright, his four luminous eyes scanning the sea of crimson flashing across the command deck. Panic tingled at the base of his skull. All monitors flared with urgent data, and his elongated violet fingers flew across the control surface, decoding the chaos. "Commander," cried Technician Ralvi, her voice breaking under pressure. "We've got incoming signatures tearing out of the void, at least 20, and they're massive." Tralvek whipped his gaze to the central hollow display. Tiny sparks appeared on the outer edge of their detection grid, each flicker a vessel, advancing in flawless formation like a tide of metal and silence. His jaw clenched. He had never seen such a coordinated emergence. "Patch a priority signal to High Marshal Kelrin immediately," he snapped. "Unknown armada breaching sovereign territory. I want deeper analysis on those ships." Now, 3 light cycles away, aboard the Dominion dreadnought Celestial Dagger, High Marshal Kelrin stood tall against the viewport, his chrome-toned skin glinting under the dim tactical lights, a mark of command among his kind. When the transmission reached him from Seraph 9, Kelrin's expression tightened. "How many vessels?" he demanded, voice cold. His aides swallowed hard. 200 confirmed, Marshal. Possibly more concealed beyond scan range. Our forward outpost is overwhelmed. They've never encountered anything like this. Kelrin brought up the fleet feed on his private console. The invading force crept through space with eerie precision, ignoring all hails. Worse still, the outlines of their ships struck a dreadful chord. "These blueprints," he whispered, stomach twisting, "they're Earthborn." "But that's not possible," his aide murmured. "Humanity doesn't command fleets of this scale." Meanwhile, aboard the modest vessel Horizon Flame, Captain Darius Wren cradled a steaming mug of synth brew, the familiar aroma grounding him in the stars. The alert came with a shriek of urgency. The Horizon Flame, a Terran ship currently embedded in Dominion fleet exercises, had never received such a transmission before. Darius had served 15 cycles among the stars, but never had he heard fear slip into Kelrin's voice. "Captain Wren, report to the command deck of the Celestial Dagger immediately. It concerns your species." Uniform donned, boots echoing through narrow corridors, Darius made his way through the ship that had become his second home, a fragile cocoon of 50 human souls amid a galaxy of giants. When he arrived at the Dominion flagship's bridge, the tension was a living thing. "Marshal, what's going on?" he asked, breath tight. Kelrin didn't speak. He merely pointed to the display. 200 warships, he said grimly. "And they look like yours. They match Terran design, but our scans insist they can't exist," murmured Darius, eyes locked on the tactical display. The vessels bore all the hallmarks of Earth-built craft: sleek contours, angular frames, the minimalist symmetry favored by Terran engineers. But something about them felt off. The energy signatures alone dwarfed anything he'd ever seen. "Marshal, I need to contact Central Command immediately," he said, urgency creeping into his voice. "These aren't part of any known fleet." Kael'ren nodded sharply. "Make the call. And Captain Wren, your people better have answers." Back on the Horizon Flame, Dr. Alira Voss was hunched over a holodeble in her science bay when the priority ping shattered the quiet. Small and sharp-minded, Alira had devoted her career to decoding alien biology and energy systems. She glanced at the incoming data and froze. Her cup slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor unnoticed. "No, that's not right," she breathed, heart racing. She reinitiated the scan twice, then a third time. Each result identical. The incoming fleet was transmitting on spectral bands that shouldn't be possible, channels that didn't exist in current astrophysical theory. Stranger still, the codes embedded in the signals were Earth origin, yet threaded across 17 spatial layers simultaneously. She slammed her hand onto the comm panel. "Darius, you need to see this now," she said, her voice strained. "These ships, they're using tech that's not just advanced, it's beyond theoretical." "What kind of tech?" he asked. "They're transmitting through folds we can barely even sense. But that's not all. The content they're sending, it's human data, cultural archives, Earth broadcasts from over 5 decades ago." Alira hesitated. "But mixed into that are astromaps of regions no human has ever charted." A creeping chill ran down Darius's spine. "Keep digging, Alira," he said quietly. "And don't let this leave your lab." Elsewhere in the Horizon Flames reactor wing, Chief Mechanic Tarn Kessler stood surrounded by a choir of blinking diagnostics, his face bathed in the green hue of anomaly warnings. Whatever propulsion method the Phantom fleet used, it wasn't known physics. It wasn't even close. "Aaron," he barked to his assistant. "Get over here. Tell me I'm not losing it." Aaron Vale peered at the console, eyes widening. "They're linked," she whispered. "Their ships are syncing, like a neural net. No lag. Instant awareness. Across 200 vessels." Tarn shook his head, stunned. Even entangled comms have range limits. This isn't communication. It's something else entirely. "They're moving like one mind, like they share a central consciousness," murmured Aaron, her voice barely above a whisper. Aboard the Celestial Dagger, High Marshal Kael'ren paced the command platform, tension visible even in his precise movements. Reports poured in from sensor teams, none of it comforting. "Marshal," said the lead analyst, voice tight, "the intruders have stopped. 1 light hour out, holding perfect formation." Kael'ren's eyes narrowed. "Any reaction to our hails?" "None, sir. It's as if we're invisible to them." Just then, Captain Wren stepped onto the bridge, his expression grim. "I've spoken with Earth Central," he said. "They confirmed it. There is no known Terran fleet of this magnitude. Our largest battle groups top out at 20 ships, never anything near this." Kael'ren's jaw clenched. "Then where in the void did they come from?" "I don't know," Darius admitted. "But Admiral Helen Price is uploading classified archives on prototype tech. Maybe we'll find a clue." Dr. Alira Voss entered next, a handheld array in her grasp. Her eyes were shadowed from hours without sleep. "Marshal, Captain," she said, lifting the scanner. "I've isolated the signal architecture from those ships. The roots are human, but something twisted them. It's as if our tech evolved through laws of physics that shouldn't exist." Kael'ren turned to her. "Explain." "They're scanning us, everything. Our ship specs, power readings, even biosigns. But the methods, they defy known principles. It's like trying to read minds with a magnifying glass, and succeeding." Darius stared at the view screen. 200 vessels hovered like specters. Human silhouettes, alien presence. His skin prickled. "They look like us," he muttered. "But they feel wrong." "We need reinforcements," he said, voice low. "I've already sent the call," Kael'ren replied. "But Captain, if what we're seeing is real, reinforcements may be irrelevant. It's not their numbers that concern me. It's what they are." Across the void between stars, two fleets hung in silence. On one side, the recognizable forms of Dominion cruisers and their Terran counterparts, proud, steady, real. On the other, 200 spectral giants, lifeless but alive, as if waiting for something only they understood. And in the silence of space, the mystery fleet remained still. Kelran convened his war council in the Celestial Dagger's upper chamber. The circular hall, forged from obsidian steel, echoed with every footstep. Alien delegates took their seats, each face tight with anxiety. He stood at the head of the massive table, his voice steady but grave. We are facing a threat unlike anything the Dominion has ever encountered. This moment will mark a turning point, Marshal Kelran began, his usual steely tone laced with unease. Even his silver skin, so often a symbol of Dominion resilience, looked dim under the chamber's white-hot lights. We face a force that defies all known logic, and we have no idea what it wants. The first to speak was Hive Oracle Zenith of the Krythak. His exoskeletal limbs twitched in unrest, clicking softly against one another as his wings vibrated. Our ancestral memory chants speak of such constructs, he warned. Vessels wrapped in silence, bearing ancient malice. We should withdraw while we still can. Withdraw, came the crystalline chime of High Prism Turval of the Velinari, her gem-like form shimmering with shifting hues. We are the Dominion. We do not run from the unknown. We observe, analyze, and confront. From across the table, a haze of glowing particles stirred within a containment shell. Counselor Vinix of the gaseous Nalari, his voice echoing like wind through a stone ravine. Observation may be too late, he murmured. They came in silence, ignored our signals. Perhaps a preemptive strike is our only option. Captain Darius Wren sat quietly, absorbing the clash of voices. His second-in-command, Commander Rian Salas, leaned in and whispered behind a cupped hand. Sir, I've been reviewing their flight path. Every move they've made lines up precisely with classified Dominion infrastructure. Outposts, refueling hubs, even covert listening stations. They know our layout like it's their own. Darius felt a cold pressure behind his ribs. How is that possible? Those locations are top clearance. I don't know, Rian replied grimly, but it means they've been watching for a long time. The chamber doors opened again. Dr. Alira Voss entered, clutching a data pad. Her eyes were ringed with exhaustion, but her voice was steady. Marshal, Captain, I've uncovered something new in the signal clusters. May I? Kelran gestured for her to proceed. Alira activated her device. A distorted, multi-layered hum filled the air, then, unmistakably, fragments of melody. Music, human, but laced with tones no Terran instrument could produce. These are their comm signals. They exist in frequencies our physics doesn't account for. But embedded inside are traces of Terran culture. Not just music, equations, verse, fragments of language. She tapped another button, but also schematics, maps, biological archives. Species no human has cataloged. Systems no Dominion vessel has charted. Hive Oracle Zenith turned his compound gaze toward her. What kind of data? Complete genetic blueprints of life forms from the edge of explored space. Weapon blueprints centuries beyond our understanding. Even planetary schematics for regions not listed in any Dominion record. The room went silent. Then Turval spoke, her voice like ringing crystal. Doctor, are you saying they've been everywhere? Alira nodded. Not just across the Dominion. Beyond it. If the data is accurate, they've charted the galaxy. A soft chime broke the silence. Darius stepped aside, answering the call flashing on his communicator. It was Earth Command, finally. Admiral Price's voice was taut. Darius, I've scoured our black vaults. We have nothing. No human fleet of that magnitude exists anywhere within Earth-aligned territories, Admiral Price said. her voice tight. Even our most advanced Black Project vessels are decades away from generating power signatures like these. Whatever those ships are, they didn't come from Earth. But there's no doubt they were built by human hands. Captain Wren remained silent for a moment, eyes fixed on the frozen feed of the fleet beyond the stars. "That's exactly what keeps me up at night," he said quietly. "There's more," Price added, her tone dropping. "I dug through our deepest archives. About 2 centuries ago, there was a classified exploration mission, codenamed Project Infinity, sanctioned by the old United Earth Directorate." "I've never heard of it," Darius replied. "Few have. They were dispatched to explore the galactic abyss, rumors of dormant technology buried in the void. The operation was so heavily buried, I needed triple override codes to access fragments of it." Darius felt something cold coil in his chest. What happened to them? They vanished. No transmissions. No debris. Just silence. The records were sealed, scrubbed, and forgotten. But Darius, the timelines align. If they survived and found what they were sent to find, the signal cut off. He stared at the now dark display, the silence heavier than before. Slowly, he returned to the conference chamber, mind spiraling through what-ifs. Down in the Horizon Flames core chamber, Chief Technician Tarnkessler worked alongside his team, trying to unravel the madness. Pete Vale, elbows deep in sensor data, looked up with disbelief. "Chief, you're going to want to see this. It's their drive matrix. These ships aren't just talking across space faster than light. They're entangled in a quantum web that doesn't even exist inside normal spacetime." Tarn turned, frowning. "Speak clearly, Pete. What does that mean?" "It means they're not acting like a fleet. They're behaving like components of a singular system. One brain, 200 limbs. When one ship reacts," Pete continued, "they all do. When one gains knowledge, the entire fleet updates in real time. Zero delay. Zero error." Tarn studied the scan readouts, eyes wide. "This isn't just technology. It's sorcery dressed in science. How do you fight something that learns faster than you can think?" Back in the war room, the air had turned volatile. The Krythak were demanding immediate evacuation. The Velinari insisted on a peaceful envoy. The Nalari urged a surgical strike. "Enough." Marshal Kael'ren's voice cracked like thunder through the chamber. "Infighting won't save us," he said, sweeping the table with a glare. "We need clarity, not chaos." Commander Rian Salas stood and activated the main viewer. The ghostly fleet still hung beyond the void. "They've been out there for 6 hours," he said calmly. "No movement. No threats. No reply. Maybe it's time we stopped projecting our fears and started asking what they're really waiting for." "They haven't answered a single hail," Salas said. "What could they possibly be waiting for?" Dr. Alira Voss didn't look up from her scanning rig. Her eyes flicked across layers of data, each more unsettling than the last. "They are responding," she said finally, voice low. "Just not with words." "What do you mean?" Kael'ren asked. "They've been studying us every second since they arrived. Scanning constantly. Not just our vessels, but everything. Power systems, shield arrays, life signs, DNA patterns. They're dissecting us from afar." Captain Wren stiffened. Like researchers observing test subjects, Counselor Vinex's shimmering cloud form churned uneasily inside his containment field. "Outrageous. We are not test animals. We are the Dominion. They have no right. Are we, though?" Hive Oracle Zenith asked softly, his mandibles clicking in a rhythm of ancestral fear. "My people's ancestral songs speak of Terrans who vanished into the silent void between galaxies. Those who returned were not truly Terran anymore. Not in mind, not in flesh. Something ancient feared them. Something that forgot how to fear anything else." High Prism Turval's radiant crystal body darkened to crimson, a hue reserved for dread. "You believe these ships are crewed by altered humans?" I believe, Zenith replied, we are witnessing the return of something that should have remained lost. Silence fell across the war table. Kael'ren scanned the faces around him. Military officers, alien delegates, trusted minds, each one etched with the same expression, dread. Then what do you propose? Every display in the chamber flickered, then erupted into a synchronized feed. A signal. Origin. The mysterious fleet. Transmitted on every channel. Inhabitants of this sector, the voice declared, we are the vanguard of the human evolutionary collective. We have returned to evaluate the development of our origin species and their chosen allies. Prepare for comprehensive assessment. The voice was unmistakably human, but wrong. It held an eerie calm, too precise to feel alive. Beneath it, layered harmonics shimmered, tones that brushed the edges of perception, triggering unease in every listener. It felt like being dissected just by hearing it. Captain Wren stepped back from the screen, breath caught in his throat. The Human Evolutionary Collective, he repeated. I've never heard of anything like that. That's because, Alira said slowly, her voice heavy, if they ever did exist, they probably don't anymore. Not as we know humans. The transmission looped, echoing through every corridor of every ship, every Dominion frequency hijacked. We have returned to assess. Prepare for inspection. Around the table, no one moved. No one spoke. Because for the first time in living memory, the galaxy had been greeted not by conquerors or diplomats, but by something worse, a reflection of its future. Across the corridors of both Dominion and Terran vessels, the transmission echoed, measured, articulate, and hauntingly serene. It spoke in perfect interstellar common, but something about the cadence made skin crawl and bones ache. We are the vanguard of the Human Evolutionary Collective. We have returned to evaluate the growth of our origin species and its allies. Prepare yourselves. Examination is imminent. Captain Darius Wren's fingers twitched involuntarily as he stared at the pulsating display. The voice, human in tone, carried undercurrents of something unnatural, something mechanical, or worse, beyond mechanical. Lieutenant Amira Foss, the ship's comms officer, worked feverishly at her console. Her face was pale, lips trembling. Captain, she said breathlessly, the vocal structure is definitely human. But there are subharmonic layers embedded in the speech frequencies the human body can't physically produce. Darius turned slowly. Are you saying the speaker's been altered? I don't know what they are anymore, sir, Amira replied. But they're not entirely human. The broadcast didn't stop. If anything, it deepened. One by one, the mysterious voice began reciting classified data. Ship names, command rosters, crew counts, tactical systems, vulnerabilities. Dominion War Carrier Celestial Dagger Crew Manifest, 4,218. Commanded by High Marshal Kael'ren of the Silver Caste. Armament, dual vector plasma turrets, phased torpedo bays. Shield integrity, 87%. Tactical posture, defensive. Morale index, fluctuating. Kael'ren's four eyes widened. That information is restricted to Command Level 5. How could they possibly? Before anyone could answer, the voice moved to the next ship. And the next. Names, specs, mission designations, psychological profiles. The precision was surgical. When it reached the horizon flame, Wren's stomach turned. Terran Exploratory Vessel Horizon Flame. Crew 51. Mission Directive. Diplomatic Outreach and Adaptive Strategy Analysis. Commanded by Captain Darius Wren. Current crew neurological status. Elevated anxiety, heightened cortisol. Acute fight-or-flight response across 74% of personnel. In the corner, Dr. Alira Voss worked furiously, running biometric overlays and spectrographic analysis. Captain, she called out, they're not just reading our technical schematics. They're inside us, scanning our neurochemistry, our metabolic responses, down to individual hormone levels. Commander Salas stepped forward, stunned. From a full light hour away? That's impossible. Even theoretical tech doesn't allow real-time bioscans at that distance. Alira nodded grimly. And yet they're doing it. No probes. No signal trace. Just observation. As if they're looking at us from inside our own shadows. The broadcast continued. Steady. Cold. All-knowing. The Dominion fleets had faced monsters, warlords, rogue AI, but never something that knew them better than they knew themselves. And, across the command deck, a single question settled in every mind. If they already know everything about us, what are they waiting for? The eerie transmission finally ceased. But just before silence reclaimed the airwaves, the voice issued one final, unnerving decree. We possess complete biological and cognitive profiles of all organic life within the system. Inspection will occur at our discretion. Do not attempt to exit the region. Aboard the Horizon Flame, down in the reactor bay, Chief Engineer Tarn Kessler stared at his latest readouts in disbelief. The numbers defied every known model of energy interaction. Aaron, he called, motioning to his assistant, take a look at this. They just conducted a full-spectrum scan of our fleet, but there's no energy trail. No emissions. Nothing. Erin Vale double-checked the readings, her brows furrowing. That's not possible, she whispered. A scan strong enough to read our biology should be lighting up our boards. But the sensors are clean. Dead quiet. Tarn exhaled slowly. Unless they're using tech that doesn't exist within our spatial dimensions. Something that scans around reality as we know it. In the Dominion's High Council chamber, Hive Oracle Zenith grew increasingly agitated. His limbs moved in erratic pulses as he attempted to decipher the genetic records passed down through his lineage. The memory chants they're becoming clearer, he buzzed to the gathered officials. 2 centuries passed. Terran vessels breached the edge of known space into what we call the Starless Hollow. They sought something. They called it the enhancement. Prism Turval shifted to a deep violet, a crystalline expression of fear. What kind of enhancement? She asked. Those who returned, Zenith said, no longer obeyed the same natural laws. They bent matter and energy with ease. Their presence distorted the world around them. But in achieving such power, they abandoned their humanity. Counselor Vinix's gaseous particles accelerated, swirling with intensity. You're saying they chose to shed what made them human. I'm saying they became something else. On the bridge of the Horizon Flame, Captain Wren struggled to re-establish contact with Earth Central. The signal was garbled, corrupted. Something was interfering. At last, a voice crackled through the static. Darius, said Admiral Price, her tone urgent. I dug deeper into the black files on the Infinity mission, and what I found, it's worse than we thought. He leaned in. Go on. They weren't just chasing lost technology. They were searching for artifacts called evolutionary enhancement devices, supposedly created by a race that left physical form behind eons ago. The tech was rumored to allow living beings to operate across multiple dimensions at once. A chill crept into Wren's blood. Are you saying they found them? I'm saying if they did, whatever came back isn't human by any meaningful definition. In the ship's science wing, Dr. Alira Voss was buried in a stream of quantum telemetry when the data crystallized into a shocking pattern. She activated ship-wide comms. Senior staff, report to the lab immediately. I've found something you need to see. As the team gathered, Alira turned to them, her voice steady. What you're about to see doesn't follow the laws of nature, because they're not playing by them anymore. They're not just using technology we don't understand, Dr. Alira Voss said, voice hushed. Those ships, they don't entirely exist here. Captain Darius Wren leaned forward. What do you mean? I mean what we're seeing, these shapes on sensors are fragments. Each vessel is only partially anchored in our reality. The rest of it extends across at least 6 other dimensional planes. Commander Salas blinked, scanning the data feed. Are you saying their weapons, their defenses, could be cloaked from every scan we have? I'm saying we might be looking at weapons that don't operate in this universe at all, Elira replied. If they decided to annihilate us, we wouldn't even register the attack before we cease to exist. Aboard the Dominion flagship Vigilant Oath, Admiral Calrin sifted through a growing pile of intelligence feeds. Reports were flooding in from all corners of Dominion territory. Sir, the comms officer said grimly, we have confirmed appearances of similar fleets everywhere. At least 24 major systems, all with identical energy signatures. Calrin's jaw tightened. How many confirmed fleets? 20 so far, possibly more. They're encircling Dominion space. Panic began to ripple across the gathered alien dignitaries. The Krythak called for an immediate exodus. The Velinari scrambled to calculate the odds of survival. The Morgri demanded unconditional surrender. Prism Turval's crystalline form pulsed with crimson. We cannot wage war against entities that exist beyond dimensional physics. Our weapons aren't even designed for this. Calrin slammed a hand on the console. Then what's your alternative? Before anyone could answer, a new alert sounded. One of the ships is moving, the sensor chief announced. Its broken formation approaching alone. Looks like it's flying a Parley beacon. Transmission incoming, said the comms officer. Put it through. A new voice emerged, still human, but layered, as though it spoke from several realities at once. Admiral Calrin, Captain Wren, delegates of the Dominion. I am Commodore Kate Reynolds of the Vanguard Fleet. I request permission to board your vessel for direct dialogue. We must speak. Time is short. Wren turned to Calrin. Do we allow it? If they wanted us dead, Calrin replied, we'd already be vapor. Let's find out what they want. All eyes turned to the approaching vessel. It looked Terran, angular, functional, but twisted, wrong, like a memory seen through warped glass. As it neared, the ship began slipping through reality like oil over glass. No engines, no thrust, just precise, linear movement that defied inertia. They're requesting docking clearance, the bridge officer reported. Calrin nodded slowly. Permission granted. Bay 7. What followed shattered everything they knew about physics. Instead of aligning with the docking port, the alien vessel flowed through the shield perimeter. No impact, no resistance. In the reactor bay, Tarn Kessler gaped at the readouts. This shouldn't be happening, he whispered. Chief, Aaron pointed at her display. They're rewriting our ship. Literally, it's morphing. On the security cameras, the hull of the Vigilant Oath rippled like water. Metal shifted, melted, reformed, shaping itself into a perfect airlock that locked cleanly with the approaching vessel. A whisper ran through the security teams. They didn't just dock. They rewrote reality to arrive. The docking was complete, but everything about it defied understanding. 3 figures stepped through the shifting airlock. At first glance, they looked human. 2 arms, 2 legs, familiar silhouettes. But as they moved down the corridor toward the waiting delegation, it became obvious. They were not human in any traditional sense. Captain Darius Wren stood at the head of a reception group, flanked by Admiral Calrin and the highest Dominion delegates. The figures glided rather than walked. Every step was too smooth, too calculated, absent of the tiny subconscious adjustments real people made. Their eyes caught the ambient light like polished chrome. And as they breathed, the air itself seemed to ripple around them. The lead figure, a woman with shoulder-length brown hair and the calm demeanor of a diplomat, stepped forward. I am Commodore Kate Reynolds of the Vanguard, she said. Her voice struck the ears like a chime struck deep in the bones, layered tones, harmonics that weren't natural, not truly. We appreciate your hospitality, she continued. The time for concealment has passed. We have much to share. Admiral Calrin stepped toward her. Your fleet has triggered a state of emergency across Dominion space. We demand to know your purpose and your identity. Reynolds smiled. It was a practiced, polite gesture, but her reflective eyes made it unsettling. "We are the legacy of Earth's UNS Eclipse Dawn initiative," she said. "Launched 2 centuries ago into the unknown. What we discovered in the void between galaxies transformed us beyond recognition." Nearby, Dr. Alira Voss was discreetly scanning the visitors with her quantum analyzer. The results lit her screen with anomalies. "Captain Wren," she whispered, "they're partially out of phase. I'm only getting fragments. They're here, but most of them exist elsewhere, in layers of space we barely understand." Reynolds turned her head slightly. Despite standing 20 feet away, she had heard every word. "Dr. Voss is correct. Our existence now spans dimensions. It was the only way to endure what we uncovered." Captain Wren stepped forward. "And what exactly did you uncover?" Reynolds gestured. Instantly, the room around them shifted. Light warped. Space bent. A 3-dimensional projection unfolded in the air, a silent vision of impossibly vast constructs floating in the dark between galaxies. Towering, shape-shifting structures made of materials that bent light and logic alike. "We found relics," Reynolds explained, "left behind by a species that outgrew physical form eons ago. Their technology allowed us to bind our consciousnesses to the quantum lattice of existence itself." Hive Oracle Zenith's eyes narrowed. The ancestral chants spoke true. "You found the ascension path. But at what price?" "Our humanity," Reynolds said quietly. "In the traditional sense, we are no longer constrained by linear space. Time, distance, matter, tools, not walls." Prism Turval's crystal shimmered a blood-red hue. "You mean you can shape reality itself?" "To a point, yes," Reynolds said. "But that's not why we've returned. We didn't come to flaunt our evolution." She waved her hand again. The images changed. Now the projections showed cracks, vast, jagged tears in space itself. And beyond them, something stirred. Dark shapes, writhing, impossible to focus on. Impossible to ignore. "If a life form exists in too many dimensions at once," Commodore Reynolds began, her voice echoing with unnatural resonance, "its presence disrupts the fabric of lower realities." She motioned to the holographic projections now filling the chamber. "What we've learned is this: the ever-growing reach of galactic civilization has drawn the gaze of something else, something that dwells between dimensions." The image shifted again. Fractures, cracks in the weave of spacetime, spanned the void like bleeding wounds. "These entities," Reynolds continued, "they do not kill in any traditional sense. They consume existence itself. They devour quantum threads, unraveling the very structure of reality." Dr. Alira Voss stared at the shifting horrors, her voice hollow. "You mean they can wipe out entire galaxies?" Reynolds didn't hesitate. "Not only galaxies," she said, her tone grim. "They erase meaning. Where they pass, history collapses. Memories vanish. Reality forgets what once was." Gas-form Vinix pulsed violently inside his containment field. "How do you know this?" he demanded. "Because," Reynolds said, "for half a century, we've been holding them back." A stunned silence followed. "You've been fighting them?" Admiral Kelrin asked. Reynolds nodded. "Yes. Those of us who evolved beyond singular dimensions. Those who returned from the void. We've been the front line. But the balance is shifting. The breach is widening." Commander Celeste Brooks, who had watched in skeptical silence, finally spoke. "Why should we trust anything you say? For all we know, you could be the threat." Reynolds turned to him. Her gaze, mirrored and inhuman, bore into him. "Commander, if destruction were our intent, there'd be no one left to question us." She raised a hand. In an instant, the floor beneath them vanished. Now they stood on a crystalline disk, suspended in the cold of space. Below, both fleets hung in stillness, alien and human ships side by side. Around them, though, something else. The sky was breaking. Tears split the void like open wounds, through which flowed things. Shapes that defied description. Forms that twisted perception. creatures that existed in 12 dimensions, and blurred reality with their mere presence. This is happening now, Reynolds said softly. At the edge of your galaxy, the barriers are decaying. Soon, these entities will no longer need to reach through cracks. They will pour into your reality. Captain Wren staggered back, visibly ill. How can we fight that? You can't, Reynolds answered. Your weapons operate in linear space. These beings aren't even fully here. Then how are you fighting them? Admiral Kelrin asked. Because we don't fight them with weapons, she said. We fight with resonance, probability collapse, and memory anchoring. Tools your science has no words for. And why would you save us? Wren asked. Reynolds turned slowly to face him. Because that's the question, isn't it? Whether your kind is worth saving. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. There is division among us, she said. Some believe that baseline minds, trapped in 3 dimensions, can't evolve fast enough to survive what's coming. They think it would be cleaner to let the galaxy burn and begin again. The starlit void faded. In an instant, they were back, standing on the polished floor of the Eternal Glory's main chamber. The holograms vanished. The transparent platform beneath their feet had dissolved without a trace. Most staggered. A few collapsed into their chairs, gasping for breath. The transition from multidimensional space back to normal reality had left them shaken, like waking from a dream that felt too real. You disagree with the others then? Captain Darius Wren asked, his voice low, unsteady. Commodore Reynolds nodded. I, and many like me, believe consciousness in all its forms as potential, she said. Your people, you can adapt. You can ascend. With time and guidance. Dr. Alira Voss was still studying the data collected during their brief exposure to the dimensional rift. Her scanners had recorded signatures that defied categorization, ripples of energy that didn't belong in any known framework. Commodore, she said slowly, what you've shown us, it's staggering. But how do we know it's real? How do we know it's not some kind of elaborate projection? Reynolds gave her a small smile, this one almost human. You'll know soon enough, Doctor, she said. In exactly 30 seconds, your deep-range sensors will pick up an anomaly. She rattled off a sequence of coordinates with mechanical precision. Those spatial points, she added, will register severe gravitational stress. A breach attempt. Admiral Kelrin instantly relayed the numbers to his operations team. The room fell into tense silence. Everyone stared at the displays, waiting, and then alarms. Admiral, a panicked voice crackled over the comms. We're registering gravitational ruptures at the given coordinates. Extreme mass distortion forming at the edge of Dominion space. So something's trying to rip open space itself. The room turned toward Reynolds. Eyes wide, minds racing, fear clashing with a rising understanding. Whatever she was, whatever they had become, they weren't lying. If that part was true, then so was everything else. And that meant the galaxy was already under siege. The alarms continued to blare, bathing the chamber in flashing red. Sensor reports flooded in, each one worse than the last. Sir, another voice came through. The anomaly is intensifying. Gravity flux levels are off the charts. It's almost through. Reynolds turned slowly to face them all. This is only the opening act, she said. These breaches have been happening for months, each one probing the seams between dimensions. Sooner or later, the barrier will give way, and when it does, they'll flood in. Captain Wren stared at the data streaming across his portable scanner. How long before they arrive? Hours, Reynolds replied, if not less. Which is why I'm here. A choice must be made now. She swept her gaze across the room. Accept our protection, or face the void alone. Admiral Kelrin looked at the trembling faces around him. Officers, diplomats, scientists. No one was prepared. What exactly are you offering us? He asked. Reynolds answered without hesitation. Total technological elevation. An alliance, Reynolds said. We will grant you access to our elevated technology, but only under our oversight. We'll also take responsibility for shielding this galaxy from what's coming through the fractures. Crystal Mind Travell shimmered with unsettled color, voice sharp and crystalline. And in exchange, Reynolds didn't hesitate. Recognition that the Ascended, what you call enhanced humans, are now the senior stewards of this galaxy's future. Your civilizations will keep their autonomy in daily affairs. But any venture involving dangerous research or expansion into unknown space will require our sanction. Gas-form Venox swirled within his containment field, his energy signature spiking with agitation. You're asking us to kneel, he said coldly, to become subjects of your will. No, Reynolds replied with calm certainty. I'm asking you to face reality. The universe is far more perilous than you imagined. Forces exist that don't just destroy, they erase. And compared to them, your science is a child playing with matches beside a volcano. Hive Speaker Zemeth began moving his 6 limbs in rhythmic, intricate motions, tapping into ancient memory threads encoded in Krydak DNA. The memory chants foretold this, he murmured. A choice between protection and sovereignty or pride and extinction. Meanwhile, aboard the UNS Vigilant Ray, Dr. Elira Voss sat transfixed by the data streaming across her console. Jake, you need to see this, she called through her comm unit. Captain Darius Wren responded immediately. What are you seeing? The gravitational distortions, she paused, eyes wide. They're not random. They're deliberate. It's like someone or something is probing the dimensional walls. Testing them. Testing. Jake echoed. Like a thief picking a lock, she said. They're learning how our universe holds itself together and where to slip through. Elsewhere in the ship's core, Chief Engineer Sam Decker was watching the energy monitors spike beyond their upper thresholds. Pete, check this out, he called. There's ships. Something's happening. His assistant, Pete Weller, ran diagnostics in real time. Chief, he said breathlessly, they're reconfiguring. The whole fleet. Look. On the main display, everyone watched in stunned silence. The 200 mysterious vessels had begun to morph, breaking into substructures, folding inward, rearranging into shapes that defied geometry and logic. They twisted, inverted, and reassembled in fluid, impossible patterns. They're shifting into combat form, Commander Salas Brooks whispered. But what are they preparing to fight? No one had to wonder for long. The first rupture fully opened. And from that rift something came through. A shadow, but not a shadow. A presence that absorbed starlight and shattered sanity. It shifted in ways the mind couldn't hold. Its shape flickering through too many dimensions to define. Where it passed, stars dimmed and entire planets flickered out of existence. Captain Wren's voice cracked in a whisper. My God, how do you even fight something like that? The question hung in the air as the Ascendant Fleet surged into action. What followed wasn't a battle, it was an event. Something cosmic and incomprehensible. The reconfigured ships of the Ascendants launched into the dimensional rift like dancers in a choreography written by gods. Their weapons didn't fire along normal vectors. They lanced through twisted geometries, skipping through 8 planes of space at once. Arcs of energy bent in spirals, striking enemies that ordinary sensors couldn't even perceive. The thing from beyond retaliated, and its counterattack was unmaking. Where it struck, there was no explosion, no fire, no debris, just nothingness. A silence that devoured sound, light, and reality itself. Not vacuum, not void. An absence deeper than death, the deletion of existence. In the observation lab of the Endeavor, Dr. Elira Voss clutched the sides of her console. Jake, she whispered, trembling. They're not just fighting here. They're engaging across at least 8 dimensions simultaneously. Are they winning? Captain Wren asked, voice tight. I don't know, Elira replied, eyes wide. I can barely track what's happening. Most of it's playing out in layers of space we can't even access, let alone understand. On the Eternal Graces Bridge, the main screen showed glimpses of the impossible. Ships that phased through time, light that reversed, forces clashing on battlefields woven between the folds of dimensions. Commodore Kate Reynolds, standing in the conference chamber, hadn't moved. She watched the horror unfold without flinching. "You see now," she said quietly. "This is what we've been holding back for 50 years. And that's only one. There are thousands." Admiral Vessar stood transfixed, silver hands clenched behind his back as the ascendants encircled the monstrosity, moving with intent, folding space around their prey. "If we agree to your alliance," he asked, not turning, "what assurance do we have you won't eventually dominate us?" Reynolds met his gaze with a kind of sad clarity. "Because dominion would bore us," she said. "Ruling baseline civilizations is like a grown mind taking over playground. What would be the point? We seek companions who can rise with us, not puppets." Outside, the crescendo neared. The Ascendant fleet had collapsed the dimensional field around the entity. They struck from every direction, every angle of existence, compressing, redirecting, banishing. The beast shrieked, not a sound, but a pulse of wrongness that rippled through space, time, and thought. And it began to recede. Commodore Reynolds turned to Captain Wren. "Captain, you speak now not only for Earth, but for all your kind. What is your answer?" Jake looked around the chamber. The gathered species, their hopes and fears etched on faces, both human and alien. He glanced at Admiral Vessar, whose stare revealed nothing. The weight of history pressed on him. "If I agree," Jake asked slowly, "what becomes of humanity's freedom? What happens to Earth?" "Earth governs itself," Reynolds said without hesitation. "But your efforts in deep space, your weapons programs, your contacts with unknown entities, those fall under our supervision. And if I refuse?" She simply gestured toward the battle unfolding beyond the bulkhead. "Then you face that alone. And Captain, let me be perfectly clear. Your weapons are meaningless against it. You couldn't even wound them." Jake pictured the families on Earth, the scattered colonies, the fragile thread of civilization spanning stars. He thought about the thing outside, trying to erase the very idea of being. He drew a breath. "We accept," he said finally. "Humanity will join you. We agree to the alliance." One by one, the other races followed. The Kritari answered first, their ancestral memory songs echoing warnings that now rang true. The Velinari joined after measured calculation. Even the proud, defiant Mority cast aside pride for the promise of survival. Only Admiral Vessar remained. He gave a single, deliberate nod. The Galactic Concord welcomes the protection and mentorship of the Ascendant Collective. As his voice faded, so too did the final pulse of the creature outside, dragged screaming back into its abyss. And the galaxy held its breath. Outside the flagship, the tide of battle shifted with stunning suddenness. The Ascendant fleet moved in unison, no longer merely defending, but overwhelming. It was clear now they had been restraining themselves, testing, demonstrating. And once the alliance was confirmed, they unleashed their full capacity. Within moments, the dimensional predator was driven back. With a final spatial convulsion, the rift in the fabric of reality slammed shut behind it, sealed. "Why didn't you fight like that from the start?" Commander Brooks asked, disbelief in his voice. Commodore Reynolds allowed herself a small, tired smile. This time, it felt human. "Because you needed to see. You had to understand. This wasn't about choosing between freedom and submission. It was survival or extinction." In the Endeavor's lab, Dr. Alira Voss was already monitoring her instruments. Her readings stabilized as the enemy vanished, and the fleet returned to its strange formation. "Commodore Reynolds," she asked through the comms, "what happens next?" "Now," Reynolds replied calmly, "the real work begins." She turned to face the gathered leaders. "We'll begin upgrading your systems. teaching your scientists how to detect dimensional breaches. But more importantly, we'll start preparing your people for the wider reality that exists beyond this galaxy. Jake Morrison raised an eyebrow. There's more than this? Captain Morrison, Reynolds said with a slow nod. This spiral of stars you call home, it's just a cul-de-sac in a cosmos that spans unimaginable distances. You've barely scratched the surface. What you saw today, that wasn't the apex predator. It was a scout, a minor threat. Admiral Vessar's gaze drifted to the starfield beyond the window, once a symbol of promise, now shadowed with unknown terrors. There are worse things than that, he asked. Reynolds didn't flinch. The universe is ancient and filled with forces that regard beings like us the way we regard insects. There are empires of light and void, machines older than time, consciousnesses so vast they warp the meaning of thought. The silence that followed was absolute. But, Reynolds added, with our guidance, your civilizations may someday stand among them. That is the hope. Outside, the Ascendant fleet began to shift again, dividing, fragmenting, phasing out toward distant coordinates. Other systems, other threats. Their presence was no longer an anomaly. They were now defenders of the galaxy. In the chamber, something changed. Everyone present understood this wasn't the end of a crisis. It was the beginning of a transformation. The galaxy, long thought to be the center of everything, had been redefined. It was a frontier now, a vulnerable outpost on the edge of something far greater. The Dominion's worst fear hadn't been the strange human ships. It hadn't even been the monsters from beyond. Their greatest fear had always been this, that humanity might evolve into something so far beyond them it could never be controlled again. And that fear had just been made real. The visitors weren't invaders. They were the future, proof of what humanity becomes when it stops limiting itself, when it pushes past mortality, past biology, past dimension. A triumph of will and intellect, and a warning written across the stars. If that story left your mind spinning and your heart racing, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the universe we're building is only just beginning. Comment below. Would you accept protection from beings who gave up their humanity, or risk everything to remain free? And remember, out here in the dark between stars, the scariest thing isn't what's alien. It's what humans might become.